That'd take a while. And this is how you come down. Back again. Still here, still not home, although time to go home is nearing rapidly. We're just talking about that. We're not really stoked about it. Sort of am, but sort of aren't. I don't know how much snow was dumped on our home this past week, but it's a lot. It's another thing that makes it tough is we make friends where we go. We've made some local friends here, some very sweet, kind people. It's going to suck to say goodbye to them. And also made friends with the cat. I named it Shitty. Shitty cat. We see Shitty, I don't know, probably a couple times a day, laying around in her favorite rest zones. Funny little cat. She loves getting scratched when we pass her by. Little Shitty cat. Now, gonna get right into it, get some voices heard. There's a lot to be heard, a lot of knowledge to be gained, and if you didn't watch that video I shared the other day, you might want to. It's on my community page too, all right? And it's also, I left it in the video description of yesterday's video. It's very important. It's very important to also see that NATO stands for Global Evil About Now. You want to look into that yourself. But anyway, moving along. Let's hear some voices. No title. Hello, my name is Glenn McDonald. Glenn, I hope it's okay to use your name because you just slammed it in here. I'm a retired 24-year veteran from the Canadian Forces and a scientist. So, naturally, I don't speak often to people of this experience that happened to me in May of 2018. Just to be clear, I was stone cold sober and I did not partake in drugs. And you're from the Canadian Forces? I'm kidding. It was on a Tuesday evening at 0100 when I was watching a movie in my living room. I live in Lorette, MB, that's Manitoba, which is a town of 2,600 people, 30 minutes south of Winnipeg. I noticed what I took to be a man sitting on my back deck looking away from the kitchen window, checking my backyard. That's bizarre. When I approached the window, I began to shout at him, asking what he was doing there. I immediately got a strange feeling that this person had no clue or desire to understand what I was saying. That was when I got a very good look at him. I noticed he was huge and covered in black fur, approximately an inch long, head to toe, and was massive. I shrunk back from the window, grabbed a big knife from my knife block. I crawled upstairs to retrieve my bat and revolver, returned to the couch and put the covers over my head because had he tried to ingress, I didn't want to be cornered upstairs in the bedroom. My wife had been on the phone when I saw it and told her about it. The next day I sat in the same spot after he silently left, and knowing my height being 6 foot, I stacked books up onto the point where my head had been the previous night and estimated his height to 8.5 feet tall. I, of course, couldn't sleep that night. The following evening at 3 a.m., I was sitting in the same spot, and another visitor showed up at 3 a.m., this time a young female. Now, this might sound odd to say, but she was about 7.5 feet in height, young, and the body of a gymnast, and very attractive human face. I stood up and looked her in the face. She immediately turned after a look of shock and bolted straight off the back deck in one giant leap and seemed to make a 90-degree turn in midair and took off like a shot. The only thing I've ever seen move that fast was a black bear north of Lac La Ronge, Saskatchewan. The following day at 1500, I saw, standing on my driveway, a massive white-haired one with black roots staring across my back lawn and a very annoyed look on his face. He stood at height as the eaves on my back garage, which would make him well over 10 feet tall. Again, I sat down and watched him stride across the width of the backyard and disappear. He moved like a ghost with no bounce to his stride. Very creepy. I sat for weeks afterwards thinking, my Lord, I hope this a habit for them? You probably meant, my Lord, I hope this isn't a habitat for them, or a habit for them, sorry. Let me read that again. Sorry about that, guys. I sat for weeks afterwards thinking, my Lord, I hope this isn't a habit for them. One begins to question sanity in these moments, but I knew what I saw, and no one can convince me of otherwise. I live 5 minutes walk from the Seine River, Seine River. I believe what I saw was a family passing through, and that they use water to navigate by. After weeks of shaking my head, I decided to visit the trails to the river and noticed someone had spray painted monkey trails on the sign to the entrance, and then discovered clear signs of their passing. There was a half a teepee structure, sort of like a hunting blind, but the trees had not been cut, but had been twisted and torn from the ground and were still green. Another had been carefully placed across the trail in a leaning fashion and wedged between two branches at a height no human could have reached. The strange thing about all three encounters was that I had no sense of malice, and in fact I had the feeling of being privileged. I have experienced their scent and presence since, no face-to-face encounters since. So that's my story. And if you have any suggestions about how to act or react, I'll be grateful. I watch your videos relentlessly now because you seem like a genuine type of person, and I thank you for coming true with your stories. They have been a rock of truth for me. Thanks for reading this. All right, so I shared your name in the beginning and I shared your name at the end, which you shared, but I'm going to omit them, all right, because I have a funny feeling if I don't. Actually, no, this came in 2019. Well, either way, you don't need the attention on your property. Now, why would these beings all of a sudden show up on your deck with the surprise there's a human right there? That doesn't make sense, right? Unless something apparently sort of maybe opened up right there, right? And maybe everything that they are seeing doesn't look the same as what we or you are seeing at the time. You never know, right? And the description of the female, it's not the first one. I remember there's a truck driver north of Chilliwack before Hope, I think, and he saw two on the side of the road. He said the male was ugly as a bowl of smashed buttholes, basically, but the female, he said, looked like a damned hot, good-looking human female with no clothes in the pouring rain in the middle of the night, and they both took off like a shot. And then, of course, we had another lady, native lady, who saw that other male Sasquatch person sitting on a log on the edge of a lake watching them go by in the boat, and said that was one handsome dude, until she got real near him and noticed he was covered in hair. So anybody's questioning the comment about this being a good-looking beings, well, it's not that uncommon of a description. There you go. Appreciate you sending that in, man. And if you have anything that's happened since, and if you're still here with us, make sure you send it to us, all right? And what was your question in the end? Any suggestions about how to act or react? All right, listen. Number one, I wouldn't feed them. I wouldn't give them any food. Number two, in your mind and say it out loud, just leave me alone. I know you're here. You know I'm here. Just leave me alone and don't mess with my home. That's what I do. It seems to be working for the most part, although we have had some weird stuff going on around our house. Past couple of years, we'll see what comes of that. All right, move it along. We appreciate it again, man. Make sure you email us again, all right? The title of this is, the next one, I am a Native American and I'm being harassed for my encounters. Well, that's not cool. Dear Steve, thank you for wanting to help people regain their credibility on this subject. May God be with you and protect you from the ones that are stalking me. My career as a truck driver has been destroyed. My life has been hacked and torn apart by the guys you spoke about. The silent ones like Craig Yanni are the ones to be most frightened of. He's good friends with Brackman and Moneymaker. He disguises himself as a Bigfoot researcher and professional photographer. He runs a group called, I won't even say it, and he puts on talks at the Bigfoot conventions talking about vocalizations, footprints, and other bullshit to draw the crowds in. Craig's job is to ask people to tell him where they see Bigfoot, and he catalogs the sightings from best to worst. The really good ones, like I had, he takes a special interest in and makes large money offers with broken promises and lies so you'll tell him where the Bigfoot live. Says he'll meet with you, but he never does, and only his friends to pump information from you. Those three guys and their wives sent me friend requests and sold me on an elaborate pipe story just to steal my photographs and video for their own financial gain, telling me I'll be part of the next TV show. I really didn't want to and kept telling them no. They then offered 50% of their business to me just to show them where I was getting all my footage from. Each time they made an offer, I backed off because they seemed kind of sketchy. Finally, I just had enough and told Craig to kiss off, and he tells me they cataloged me into a group of people to discredit them. I said I don't care. He laughed and said, "We own you. you will show us the Bigfoot habitat, or no one will ever take you for your word again. They have come at me from all angles, making up stories to make me look like a bad person online, and have called every trucking company within 200 miles of where I live and told the managers enough about me that I can't get a job. I've been driving truck for 22 years with no tickets and no accidents. I shouldn't have any problems. They made me homeless in my new car, and no one will hire me just because I wouldn't show them where I got all my Bigfoot photographs and video footage. Craig has called my family and is now my full-time man stalker. The reason is because I hold a secret Native American legend and power to see and communicate with the beings on the other side of the wall, and the money talkers, the money takers, know. My life is ruined by these blood suckers, but you, my friend, are definitely helping others become a statistic. Thank you so much for opening up and speaking the truth about what's happening. Shane Gorel. Okay to use my name. Here's the pics. Number 1, female in front, male in the back. Number 2, male on top of the tree. Okay, Shane, well, consider your email shared. I'll share these pictures. I just zoomed in on my phone here. I'm looking at the one with the 2. It definitely looks like hair or fur type of being. I can't make out too many features myself, but there you are, you guys. Shared. And that's unfortunate about your run-ins and what's going on with that group of so-and-sos. But if you got anything new and that'll help you or help the people, make sure you email it to us, all right, man? If you got something that you feel needs to be shared that's going to help the people, I'll share it. If you've got some solid facts about somebody doing destructive things to innocent people, share it with me, and I'll make sure they're exposed for it too. I ain't scared. Now, moving along. Here's another one. This is titled, Something Came in My Tent While I Was Sleeping. I've been listening and watching your videos for some time now and enjoy hearing the vast amount of amazing stories to listen to that you share. I believe this story may be worthy of sharing with the listeners. This is how it goes. My friend and I spent the weekend camping at Rock Lake in Algonquin Park, Ontario, Canada one summer about 5 years ago. We were using my green laser pointer to point at a ton of objects we observed moving about and flashing lights in the sky as if they were communicating with each other. So after this amazing experience, we left the beach at about 11 p.m. and hit the tent to sleep. It was a 2-room with a front screen porch for bugs. We settled in for the night, put the fire out, and went to sleep. Sort of. I awoke to my zippers on my tent being opened at whatever time it was. It was still pitch black out. I had my eyes still closed, thinking it was my friend next to me who maybe woke up to go take a leak. He enjoyed drinking, and he had a bit of a buzz on, and I thought it was him staggering over to the wrong side of the tent. I heard a long zip and another long zip, and you know, when camping, I like to meet the zippers in the middle. Anyways, I said out loud, "Hey Brad, wrong side, bro." As I heard the zipping of the tent door opening, I repeated, but louder, "Hey Brad." No response. So I opened my eyes, and to my total, absolute, terrifying sight was some creature which looked like it was half in the tent, crouched down like a human would, that dropped something on a floor and was effing staring at me face to face with huge, glowing green eyes. I freaked out and slapped the tent floor and the ground as hard as I could, and like a bullet, this creature took off into the darkness with branches and shit breaking. Now I have camped solo since, but not there. I can't honestly say what the hell it was, but I have never heard of an animal nicely opening the zipper of a tent. I tell you what, I was scared. Over the years of thinking what this could be, I narrowed it down to the cryptozoology category and ufology. Number 1, an alien or ET entity, or number 2, an adolescent Sasquatch. The final conclusion was, whatever it was curious and looking at me and did not harm me, but sure startled the shit out of me. Cheers, I hope you like this true event story. Thanks for sharing. Rick Clausen, currently living in Edmonton, Alberta. I attached a photo I took in an area called David Thompson Country. This is an area known for Sasquatch sightings, and I solo hike here frequently, but I've yet to see or hear one yet. Well, it sounds like you already seen one. It looks like typical Rocky Mountain terrain there. And so what's up with it knowing how how to use a zipper right. Previous experience with the zippers, without a doubt. That's pretty creepy. You're not the first one to report somebody or something sneaking into a tent like that either. That gets you shot, right? In most cases, that will get you shot in my tent. I sleep with a loaded Magnum when I'm in the woods, no matter what, just because I'm not stupid. Crazy, man. If you got anything else that's happened since, make sure you email me, all right? Share my story at howtohunt.com and keep us updated with what's going on, what you've learned, and maybe what you want to share with the people if you got something we can learn from. Here's another one titled Encounter. Great stuff, Steve. I found your site on the YouTube and wanted to present my story. My encounter isn't like any you have heard and has actually given me thoughts of terror every time I recall it. Hair standing even now. I am prior military, 10 years in a NATO unit that sent us to some of the shitholes of the world so that war would be, well, enough of that. Because of my background, I find that hunting with a rifle is more like shopping and that a recurve bow actually has some challenges. So I was elk hunting in the Vale Tree Farm near Tenino, Washington in the early part of November, sometime in the 90s, a couple of hours before dark. Totally camouflaged out, paint, tree branches, scent pads on my boots and hat, and was elk piss from the finest cow in town. The whole enchilada, as it were. Teepee creeping into the woods for about an hour and following a wide glide, as we call an elk trail. I came to a spot where the trail started up a ravine and ended on top at a large old-growth cedar stump. This gave me a commanding view of the trail about 50 yards with very little obstruction. I placed my gear behind the stump and crawled up about 5 feet off the ground. This was perfect. An evening breeze was traveling up from the valley below and pushing my scent behind me into the woods. The top of the stump was about 5 feet in diameter, which allowed me to sit down and prepare my bow, rangefinder, and such. As I settled in, I could hear the sounds of the forest, and anticipation was growing. As the darkness began to fall and the shadows moved in, I kept telling myself, just 2 more minutes. Well, about the time I went from can see to can't see, about the time it went from, I think you probably meant can't see to can see, something was at my neck, sniffing me for all it was worth. Now, mind you, I heard this giant snort and then a sneeze from about a half a foot from my neck, and the back of my neck was covered in slobber, about as thick and as much as you could ever imagine. Wiping the stuff off my neck did some doing. I screamed out this ungodly yell and at the same time turned to see what the hell. And believe me when I say I was terrified. Turning to look and seeing absolutely nothing and not a sound other than the echo of my scream. The ground was not chewed up as a retreating elk would have done, and my height from the ground would not be easily reached by any sort of deer. A bear would certainly have made a sound while retreating into the timber. So after gaining some sort of composure and my gear, it was almost pitch black in those now spooky old woods, and I still had my hike out ahead of me. Now, I have been in some situations where I was concerned about my welfare, but this was something way past imagination. As you know by this story, I made it out and home, but I will never be all right. I told the story to my hunting buddy who hunted these same woods, and he said he always felt like he was being watched there. Thanks for your time. Use my name if it does you any good. Thanks, Ben Bales. If you want to go there sometime, look me up. That's a shitty experience, and I think I read that before. It just came in 2020, January 2020. That is freaking crazy alarming, isn't it? And I guess I screwed up. You did mean from, not from light to seeing light, but seeing light to dark, right? Sorry about that. All right, here is another one. A little bit of background noise, but it shouldn't be too bad. And this is titled Sasquatches of Vancouver Island. No shortage of those. That first picture you have to turn, it is picking apples. You can see the wrist in hand, and that's not no bear. My Uncle Rennie, mountain man, skinned thousands of bears and said, "That's no bear." On the second picture I took, I went to do video, and I took that picture, and the second one, what it is a fern across the face of a female Sasquatch. She had a juvenile there, and she is laying on the ground, and that's the picture. Well, that sounds interesting. I'll look at the pictures, I'm sure, in a second. I'll keep reading. Here's a little bit about me. I've been hunting and fishing since I was 5 years old. I'm 57 now, and it's time I tell my story. I call this the Ward Lake story in Sprout Lake. Is where I grew up, and here's how it goes. Well, I was about 17 years old, and I grew up right at Tall Timbers at Sprout Lake, and there was a lake across the highway called Ward Lake. So my best friend used to come up every weekend, and we would go to the bush shooting squirrels and stuff and do a little bit of trout fishing. Well, he came up one weekend, and we thought we'd go into Ward Lake, do some fishing, and we brought a little Kiwi 22 with us. Well, the lake was probably about a 2-mile walk from the highway, and as we were walking the trail, we always noticed that the limbs were about 8 to 9 feet high. They were always snapped and hanging. As we got to the lake, we noticed how quiet it was. Dead quiet. Not a sound. Within a few minutes, we could hear it. It sounded like a 2x4 broken over a man's knee echo across the little lake, which is kind of freaky, for sure. But we kept on. We thought they were just fish. Well, we caught a few trout, and they're all cutthroat in there, and we just felt like we were being watched. So we went back to camp, and we set up our tent. We wrapped our trout in tinfoil and put them in the pack sack. We cooked a couple up, and then we just went and climbed in our sleeping bags. As we laid there and chatted, all of a sudden we heard another big snap from the other side of the lake. And just for that, you could hear thousands of frogs. As soon as that snap happened, they stopped dead quiet. Not a sound anywhere. It was kind of freaky. I must say, as a 17-year-old boy, laying there just freaked right out. As we laid there, we could hear the trees snapping, coming closer and closer, coming across the lake. There was no sound but just trees crashing. It was very terrifying for sure as the thing was coming closer to us. We laid there quiet, shaking in fear, and then it got really quiet and we couldn't hear any snapping at the time, but soon we could hear like it sounded like a mouse was like scratching at the tent, and then it sounded like rocks smashing the lake all around us. We can hear a splashing going on, and it was like 15 to 20 feet away from us at the time. We sat there in fear until the sun came up, and then we made a break for it as we grabbed our tent and our pack and were running up the trail about a mile. We noticed our tin foil of fish was gone, and about a mile up the tin foil was laying right in the middle of the trail. And everybody knows if it was a bear, that would never happen, or a raccoon. It was unwrapped perfectly without even a toe mark on it. And there was a tree across our trail that wasn't there before on the way back. Anyway, I'm not a very good writer, and this is the best I can tell you on this story. Thanks for listening, Steve. I have a lot more stories, but I'm just not a good writer. You can use my name, Leon Poirier. Steve, this part is just for you. Okay, I'll read that for me in a minute, all right, man? But in the meantime, if you're still hanging out here with us, email me back. And if you've got a bunch of information you want to share, sounds like you're right by me, maybe we'll have you in the shop one day and we can both sit there and bullshit about what we know online, if you'd like to do that, all right? So just email me back again at sharemystory@howtohunt.com, and we'll see if we can do that. And then possibly, I'm looking at these photos right now. I'll share them. I can't put too much time into it right now, but I have a tough time with these pictures, so it's probably going to be best you show me those pictures in person maybe, and point out everything too. All right? That's right up the road from my frickin' house, as usual. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, man. Here's another one. A possible Bigfoot encounter at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, 1988. Hi, Steve. My name is Chris. Back in 1988, I was a Marine stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, as Basic Infantry Rifleman 0311. As part of our training, we practiced land navigation in daylight, as well as nighttime with only a compass and a topographical map. One night we were assigned to a night patrol to move to certain checkpoints. Our fire team consisted of 45 men, which was led by a corporal. I was assigned point that night, which we always joked that we were the first ones to draw a fire. And that night was pitch black with no moonlight, and we were carrying our flashlights with red lens so not to ruin our night vision. We were all spaced approximately 15 meters apart and staggered with every other guy on the side of the road. We were advised there would be no units out there except maybe a sniper group. We were carrying blank ammunition and our M16s. As we were moving along the road, I walked upon a figure standing right next to the road within a few feet of me. I was so startled, I fell back on my ass and started firing. Everyone dropped to the ground and took defensive positions on their sides of the road. My corporal made his way up to me asking what I saw. I explained what I saw, and he said it was probably someone in a ghillie suit. We continued on, and I never thought anything about it. I believed in Sasquatch since I was a child, but never knew they existed on military bases. Now, it could have been a sniper, but at the time their training would have consisted of being concealed, observe, and report. I love your channel, and I've been watching it for years. I'll write back another time about a possible experience I had in Maine. Take care and keep up the good work. Okay, man, appreciate you, Christopher. And Christopher's in your email address. I would imagine you know what it was. If you got anything else that's happened to you since, and you're still hanging out here with us, man, make sure you email me, all right? And send me what you got. Send me what you've learned. Anything really. If you got anything that you think will help somebody here, or even help yourself, whatever, or help me, I don't give a shit. If there's help, there's knowledge, send it to me, all right? Share my story, howtohunt.com. Here's another one. Update on my previous emails. Hello again, Steve. I hope this letter is okay, as it is a follow-up on 2 previous reports going back close to 2 years that never got read. Steve, it's Ken here from Parksville. No problem using our names. I don't enjoy typing letters out of my phone and never plan to write another one. However, with what my wife Mariana and I have experienced over the last few camping trips, I decided to step up one more time. I will have to leave out some details or this will be far too long. I followed you from the beginning and have told you about photo I saw in '76, meetings I had with the late Dr. Bindernagel, fresh tracks in the snow up on Ash, Maine. That was the last road cut off to the left before reaching Oshinow Lake. I stood on that bridge trying to spot the maker of those tracks. That's not too far from my place. Breakdown of the last 4 trips to the northern part of the island. Number 1. We were whooped at from the timber while camping in February. Number 2, sent you a picture of a track in sand spit with my boot next to it to show size. Number 3, while waiting for me to check trail cam, Mariana was hit with a stench that almost made her sick. Smelled like rotting meat and sulfur. I sent you a picture that I took shortly after a small herd of calf elk had passed by. I had taken random photos of the area just because I loved that section of timber. 2 months later, I zoomed into one of those pictures to see if any elk in the background, and that's when I spotted what looks like a large white figure looking at me. I sent that picture to you and committed to going back to that spot and taking comparison photos. We did that early May of 2023, but unfortunately, after 4 days of searching, I could not locate that spot. However, on the second day I returned from my search to have my wife comment, "You didn't fool me." She then went on to tell me I snuck around the swamp and was banging on a tree with a stick, and it sounded like the stick broke. She had gotten out of her camp chair, walked to the edge of the road, and was talking to me as she thought I was only about 40 feet away. Steve, I'm 77 years old. I can still hike around the bush pretty good, but I doubt I could have made it back behind that swamp in my prime. It was not me, and there wasn't another person or a vehicle in miles. That's why we go there. Last thing I want to say is that I know I've been close to these beings 3 or 4 times and am talking 20 to 40 feet or so. I've tried communicating and I've tried to spot them on a couple of occasions. Never have I had any reason to feel fear or at risk, and no, I'm not usually armed. Sorry this is long, and I won't attach photos as you already have them somewhere. Also, this letter may also vanish in the mist as I know how flooded you are with emails. If those shows up and you want me to send photos, ask Sarah to message me as we made contact through her store. Thanks for what you do. Keep your socks dry and safe travels. Regards, Ken and Mariana Salmon. Ken, appreciate you, man, and your wife, Mariana. From where I am right now, I'd go through hell trying to dig up all the emails and all the photos. Then I got to save them. Then I got to export them. Then I got to import them. And then learning this new editing program. So if you want to send them again in one go, send them and I'll share them. I will. And maybe not right away, but as soon as I get home in a handful of days, it'll be much easier. And you know what? I've come to the conclusion, if you go looking for these beings on purpose, they already know your intentions before you get out of your truck. They already know, and that's probably why you're having so much action, right? And probably why I'm not having that much action, because I usually got a bit of a shitty message for them when I get out of my truck. But anyway, you got anything else you want to share with me, including those pictures? Share away. Okay, man? Be safe out there. All right, here's another one. This one is titled Northwest Ontario Encounter. Steve, to give you a little background information, my family owned a fishing resort in Northwest Ontario for 42 years. I spent almost all my summers working there and obviously dealing with customers from all walks of life. I remember hearing about an encounter that a couple of guys had some 20 plus years prior to mine that nobody took seriously. In fact, other campers literally laughed them out of the camp. They never came back after telling their story. And I hate to admit it, but I didn't believe them either, but knew better than to ridicule them because you just don't do that to paying customers. Here's my encounter. I remember it like it was yesterday, and hearing your personal encounters and the stories of others has brought it back to me with a vengeance. It was June of '93 on a full moon night without a cloud in the sky, one of those nights where you didn't need a flashlight. I decided to go out and fish a weed line that had a steep break about 15 feet offshore. I was trolling along the break when I looked up onto shore and watched it stand up. I looked it dead in the eyes and absolutely froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It stood all of 8 feet tall with a face almost leather looking. Its eyes appeared to be set into its head and were locked onto me. I didn't move a muscle and didn't take a breath. I vividly remember how the water dripped off its fingers, shining in the moonlight. It took a step or two backwards, turned, and took off into the bush. Needless to say, I freaked out. I fired up the motor and took off back to camp. I had to stop before I made it back to the doctor, where I regained my composure as best I could. Once I made it back, I went straight to the house and into my room. I know that I didn't sleep a second that night or much of the following days. I never told anyone about my encounter, not a soul, in over 26 years. I don't know how I would have dealt with the repercussions from the customers in camp, let alone my family. I remember about a year later, while having dinner in town, there was a couple of native guys eating in the booth next to my parents and I. They were talking about Sasquatch and how they had been more active in the last couple of years. I immediately started sweating profusely, to the point where my dad asked me if I was feeling okay. I just told him I needed some fresh air. Went outside. I couldn't believe how much it affected me. I can't believe just how much it still does. And to this day, I've yet to go out in a boat after sunset. Thank you for being able to tell our stories and being our voice. I feel like a wimp that it's taken me this long to email you mine. I appreciate it if you kept my name anonymous. Okay, let me go back to the top. Okay, I didn't share it. Okay, man, that's no problem. And I read this a long time ago. I totally read this. Now, when was it sent in? 2019. Holy. I absolutely remember. I remember you sending that in. I wonder if you're still here with us. I wonder. And if you are, you know what? If you are, and you still haven't been able to speak openly and honestly with your family, send them this frickin' video, or pick any video and send it to them. You know? And if you've had anything else happen since, or learned anything else since, don't be shy and share it with us, okay? Especially if you feel it may help you or us, or even me. Me especially. I need all the help I can get. All right, one more. 2015, Manitoba Duck Mountains. This is sent in 2019 as well. Hello, Steve. I'm from New England and went on a spring black bear hunt in May 2015 with a friend who lives in central Manitoba. My friend has a registered trap line in the Duck Mountains Provincial Park. He's had it for almost 25 years and traps it hard all winter. I've never doubted credible people who have had a Sasquatch experience. I was 54 when I had this experience. I hunted and trapped 45 years in New England and never had a truly hair-raising experience until the May of 2015. It was the second day of the hunt. It was approximately 8 miles in the bush from the truck. We rode in double on an ATV, and my buddy dropped me off about 300 yards from the stand and the bait. He left to go clear a trail about 3 miles from where he dropped me, and if I got a bear, I was to call him if he didn't hear the shot. If I didn't shoot anything, I was to walk back to the drop-off point at 9:30 p.m., as I'd done previously. And keep in mind, it was staying fairly late. It was about 5 p.m. when I got to the bait stand with no issues. I have no problem finding my way through the bush. I'd been in the stand about 3.5 hours and had only seen one small blonde bear, not more than 150 pounds. My ass was getting tired of sitting on the bench. I'd been hearing birds and lots of grouse flutter all night. I noticed all noise stopped, but didn't think an awful lot about it. At about 9 o'clock, I heard quite a bit of noise up the trail at about 45 degrees to my left. I'm guessing 80 yards away, but I really couldn't see much due to a large spruce tree between us. I was sure it was my bear. I continued to hear the noise for what seemed like 10 minutes, and it sounded like a bear pulling bark from a dead tree. The noise stopped as quickly as it started. I was getting ready to call it quits when I saw movement 10 yards behind the bait. I thought it was a bear coming to the bait, but it traveled from left to right behind the bait and never approached it. At this point, I didn't have a good view of what I was seeing, or if it was on 4 legs or 2. It came into view just to the right behind the bait in a small clearing, and I knew it wasn't a bear. It never showed interest in the barrel of beaver and oil. From my view, I'm guessing about 7 feet tall and black with a head that looked like a wrestler with no neck. It happened quickly, and I was looking down from the stand, and it was about 65 yards away. I don't think it saw me at this point. As I shifted my ass to see better, my rope I had used to pull my gun and pack up into the stand fell off the bench and hung like a grapevine tied to the railing. It turned its torso from the waist up and stopped in its tracks and looked directly in my direction. I almost shit myself at this point. I was afraid it would come toward me. Now I know it saw me because it quickly stepped out of view to my right in only a couple of strides. This is the same direction I had to walk back to meet my ride. I sat there for what seemed like days trying to digest what happened. I called my friend and told him I was ready to go. I never mentioned what happened. I walked the 300 yards to the pickup point with one in the tube and my finger on the safety. My eyes were bugged out of my head, expecting this thing to burst out of the spruce at any second. It was a welcome noise to hear the ATV coming on the cut road to get me. I was soaked in sweat to my socks. I did hunt another day with him at my side in a different area of the park and took a 310-pound bear. He asked me several times if everything was okay. I was paranoid at every noise we heard and almost afraid to look in that direction, but had to look like seeing a wreck on the highway. The only person I ever said anything to was my wife. She says it must have been a bear and looked different from the angle I was at, and I know what I didn't see. I've been in stands looking down at bears from 5 to 150 yards, and they still look like bears. This was definitely on 2 legs and took long strides. I think the original noises I heard was him pulling deadfall apart for grubs or something. I've never mentioned this encounter to any other person. My friend has wanted me to go back several times to hunt, however I haven't. He has a cabin a few miles beyond where this happened and says I can come up and stay the week in it and have the run of his RTL to hunt. This probably won't happen. I couldn't imagine trying to sleep there. Anyway, this wasn't a great news breaking story. I would only hope to not ever have an experience like it again. No doubt, that sounds vaguely familiar too. I may have read that back in the day, but whatever, it's 5 years ago. Yeah, it's a shitty one. It's shitty not being able to share it, right? That's the real shitty part of all this, is not being able to tell people, and the people you trust, feel you should be able to trust, they laugh at you or tell you didn't see what you saw and they weren't even there, right? But anyway, appreciate you sending that again. And if you are still here watching the channel and you've learned any more, or you have shared it or met somebody who's had the same shit go down, email us. Email us and share with us, okay, man? Huh, crazy. Yeah, I don't want to see that hunting. Not me. I'm good. I've had my experiences. I'm good. I just want the answers now. Anyway, I'm moving along. We're gonna go find some food. So, you know the routine, you guys. Share my story at howtohunt.com. You'll get a shared word for word. And make sure, if you haven't, make sure you watch that video I posted yesterday on my community page. All right, it'll help you put a few puzzle pieces together if you're curious as to what and why shit's going down on the planet. It did for me anyway. Talk to you later.